On with my read aloud series from Indian Economic Development textbook for class 11. I'm doing chapter 7, Employment, from unit 3, Challenges Facing the Indian Economy. So this is chapter 7, Employment, Growth, Informalization and Other Issues. So informalization of Indian workforce. In the previous section, we found that the proportion of casual laborers has been increasing. One of the objectives of development planning in India since India's independence has been to provide decent livelihood to its people. It has been envisaged that the industrialization strategy would bring surplus workers from agriculture to industry with better standard of living as in developed countries. We have seen in the preceding section that even after 55 years of planned development, more than half of Indian workforce depends on farming as a major source of livelihood. Economists argue that over the years, the quality of employment has been deteriorating even after working for more than 10 to 20 years. Why do some workers not get maternity benefit, provident fund, gratuity and pension? Why does a person working in the private sector get a lower salary as compared to other persons doing the same work but in the public sector? You may find that a small section of Indian workforce is getting regular income. The government, through its labor laws, enable them to protect their rights in various ways. This section of the workforce forms trade unions, bargains with employers for better wages, and other security measures. Who are they? To know this, we classify workforce into two categories: workers in formal and informal sectors, which are also referred to as organized and unorganized sectors. All the public sector establishments and those private sector establishments which employ 10 hired workers or more are called formal sector establishments, and those who work in such establishments are formal sector workers. All other enterprises and workers working in those enterprises form the informal sector. Thus, informal sector includes millions of farmers, agricultural laborers, owners of small enterprises, and people working in those enterprises, as also the self-employed who do not have any hired workers. It also includes all non-farm casual wage laborers who work for more than one employer, such as construction workers and head load workers. Those who are working in the formal sector enjoy social security benefits. They earn more than those in the informal sector. Development planning envisaged that as the economy grows, more and more workers would become formal sector workers, and the proportion of workers engaged in informal sector would dwindle. But what has happened in India? Look at the following chart, which gives the distribution of workforce in formal and informal sectors. So in this section 7.2, we learned that there are about 460 million workers in the country. There are about 29 million workers in the formal sector. Can you estimate the percentage of people employed in the formal sector in the country? Let me show you. So how many? 29 million. There are 29 million workers in the formal sector out of the total 460 million, they have said. So if you work out the percentage, it comes to how much? Around 6.3. Now you can take it as 7%. So you can see about 7% if you take. Thus, the rest, that is 93%, are in the informal sector out of 29 million formal sector workers, only 6 million, that is only about 21%, that is 29 divided by 6 into 100, are women in the informal sector. Male workers account for 69% of workforce. Now, since the late 1970s, many developing countries, including India, started paying attention to enterprises and workers in the informal sector, as employment in the formal sector is not growing. Workers and enterprises in the informal sectors do not get regular income. They do not have any protection or regulation from the government. Workers are dismissed without any compensation. Technology used in the informal sector enterprises is outdated. They also do not maintain any accounts. Workers of this sector live in slums and are squatters. Of late, owing to the efforts of the International Labour Organization, that is ILO, the Indian government has initiated the modernization of informal sector enterprises and provision of social security measures to informal sector. Unemployment. You might have seen people looking for jobs in newspapers. Some look for a job through friends and relatives. In many cities, you might find people standing in some select areas looking for people to employ them for the day's work. Some go to factories and offices and give their biodata and ask whether there is any vacancy in their factory or service. So here's a picture which you can see that people are sitting, unemployed mill workers waiting for casual jobs. So generally in every city, in every area, you have what is known as a labor chalk or the labor place where these people sit down and they are ready to do any work for the day, for the day's wages which have been at least agreed on by the government.